Hey everybody, welcome to the Beehive. I'm your host, the Beat LLC, and this is where we stack precious metals like it's pollen and nectar. Our pollen is silver and our nectar is gold, preserving our wealth as honey of old, and like ancient metals, we hold our own. And speaking of ancient metals, I want to do an unboxing. I've got an ancient coin in here from Harlan J. Burke, or Aaron Burke actually, but the shop of Harlan J. Burke in Chicago, Illinois. Great place. Check them out. They deal in both silver and gold bullion, as well as antiquities and ancient coins. One of the reasons I like them so much is the knowledge I gain by talking with Aaron Burke there. He's an expert in the field, and I get to talk with him from time to time, so I really enjoy that. So we'll get into this coin soon. I'm trying a new setup here where I'm also streaming to Instagram, so we'll see how that works out, but let's get into this here box. So I just got back from the New Orleans Investment Conference, which was quite an experience. And so my display is all tore down. I got no silver up, but I got a couple of, this is the investment conference round. This is the 2024. It was new last year, but I just picked it up today. This is the founder of the investment conference, James Blanchard. And so last year was its 50th anniversary. It started basically right after the gold window closed, and they understood that there's going to be a need for that type of investment conference. And, this year that's become quite evident. And I'm sure, years past as well, but these last couple years have been really enjoyable for me to go hang out there and see all the like-minded people and learn about investments and silver and gold, and it was a great time. So we'll get my setup back up here going after a while. Chew, Silverboy Blues, Space Miner, welcome in, guys. Thanks for hanging. Let me check this Instagram, make sure we're still going over there. And we are. Okay, so Club Osmium, yes, indeed. We had a great booth down there, and there's lots of interest this year with the Osmium, so it was a good time all the way around. So we had the big box, and we had this, and then we have this. It just keeps going and going. Very well packaged. And we're getting closer. Let's see the paperwork. Silver and Cigars, what's up, bud? I've just been thinking about you going through the airport again. I remember when I first had my channel up, I had went over, I think, where was I? I don't think it was Panama, but anyway, I had taken a trip and picked up a cigar and sent it your way, and I think you were traveling too, and we were talking about airports, and boy, and I was talking about the construction in the airports, and that I thought it was probably for this new system that they wanted to set up, and I think I was right about that, in that now going to DIA. Of course, I'm in Denver, so Denver International Airport. It used to be to travel or get to TSA security, you would go into the airport, and then you would go quite a ways into the airport, and you'd go down some escalators and get to kind of the center of the airport where you could then go through TSA and get checked. Well, now, like right when you enter the doors, you can't you can't get into the airport hardly at all without going through, picking your chute, basically. It's like walking. I grew up on a ranch, so it reminds me of going into our barn, like, and herding our sheep. And once we get them into the barn, there's all these different chutes that we can open and shut and, steer and sort. And that's exactly what I felt like, is just a cow or a sheep in the chute or the stall, or being herded one way or the other. Quite uncomfortable, to say the least. But yeah, I hope you're doing well, Silver and Cigars. And okay, so we finally got to the goods here. There's a couple boxes, and yeah, let's see what we can get in here, how we can get in here, and what's in here. I need to get me some of this packing material. I can feel it right in there, though. Alright, here we go. Let's see, let's give an overview here first. Zoom in a bit too. Here, since we got Silver and Cigars in the house, let's give him the backdrop here. It's a nice sticker, Silver and Cigars. Financial advisor, just a famous YouTuber. Nice. Thanks for hanging. And so, yeah, it says here, Bithynian Nicomedes II, 149 to 127 BC. It's a tetradram, 17 grams, so a little over a half ounce. And on the obverse, we have the diademed head of Nicomedes II. On the reverse, we have Zeus crowning the name of the king with wreath held in right hand, in left hand scepter, to eagle on thunderbolt and monogram. To left, I'm guessing that is what. To left, eagle on thunderbolt and monogram. So this is Nicomedes, kind of looking up into the heavens, as it were, with a diadem. And on the reverse here, this was what really attracted me, was this reverse with Zeus. So this is a recognition of, or a rendition, whatever you would say, of Zeus. And over here to the right of him, of course, we have Basileus, which means king. And he's holding his scepter, and he has a wreath in his right hand in which he is reaching over and crowning the name of Nicomedes. And also here we can read Epiphanies, actually, I believe. And then, of course, to go along with Zeus, you have your eagle riding a thunderbolt. So this is a depiction of a thunderbolt from back in the day. So that is quite cool. Let me see. I'm going to have to move that light a little bit. But yeah, the thunderbolt back then has a little bit different design, or the lightning bolt, than we're used to today. But I kind of like that eagle riding the lightning. And also I like that Zeus here is portrayed just more like a normal looking man, not too crazily ripped or nothing, but I thought nonetheless very cool. And so I want to talk about a few things about this coin. We'll go look up some information on it here, just showing you a idea of how the coin looks here in hand. It's actually quite a nice sized coin. So here is the 1 ounce behind it. So it's almost the same size as a 1 ounce coin. It's obviously much thinner. It's about a ½ ounce. So, but it's a nice big, nice chunky round. So, and look at that. Look at that relief on there. Woohoo! Very nice. All right, so let's go look at some information here. Come check over here in Instagram. Okay, so let me share my screen. Yes, that's okay. Go away. Okay, so here we are over on Wikipedia. And we looked up Nicomedes. Let me pull this back and check my screen. Okay. And let me just pull this up here. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. So, Nicomedes II Epiphanes. And Epiphanes is right here. It's showing you God manifest. And there's a couple different meanings for Epiphany back then at that time. I will point that out later here in a little bit. Silverboy Blue says, incredible ancient coin. Can't believe the great condition that it is in. I agree. It's very nice. And I'll show you here some pictures off the internet. And out of the examples of coins that I was looking at, I think that this reverse especially was the favorite that I have seen so far. So the Zeus crowning his name is very well done from others that I have seen. And that's one thing that I'm attracted to in these ancient coins, and that I want to talk about a little bit tonight, hopefully when I get into it here a little bit, is just the, goodness, how do I switch this back? The simple way in which this is saying so much, but yet it's so clean of a design. You've got the eagle riding the lightning bolt there, and the god Zeus crowning the man Nicomedes as ruler with this wreath. And so it's very clean, but yet says so much. So yeah, let's get back to this and see what it says. That looks fairly hard to read there for you guys, but maybe let me try this mode. Not much better. So, Nicomedes II Epiphanes, God manifest. So was the king of Bithynia from 149 to 127 BC. He was fourth in descent from Nicomedes the first. Nicomedes the second was the son of the successor of Prusias the second, and Apame fourth, which is like a queen, a woman. And his parents were related as they were maternal cousins. He was so popular with the people that his father sent him to Rome to limit his influence. However, in Rome, he also gained favor with the Roman Senate, forcing Prusias to send an emissary named Minas with secret orders to assassinate him. But the emissary revealed the plot and persuaded the prince to rebel against his father. Supported by Attalus II, Philadelphus, king of Pergamon, he was completely successful and ordered his father to be put to death at Nicomedia. During his long reign, Nicomedes adhered steadily to the Roman alliance and assisted them against the pretender to the throne, Pergamon, Eumenes III. He was succeeded by his son, Nicomedes III. Nicomedes introduced the Bithynian era for numbering years on his coins. This system was to last in parts of the Greek world down to the 4th century AD. Appian. He sent Minas as his fellow ambassador and told him if he should secure a remission of payments to spare Nicomedes, but if not, to kill him at Rome. Prusias fled to the temple of Zeus, where he was stabbed by some of his emissaries of Nicomedes. And that was kind of what I had there. So if you see over here on the side, it says his reign was from 149 to 127 BC. His predecessor is Prusias II, successor Nicomedes III, born in Bithynia, modern-day Turkey. So right up by the Black Sea. And what is interesting is, that's not where I wanted to go. Let me find the page I wanted. All right, no, I'll just click here. So the Bithynian era, I found this kind of interesting as well. So the Bosporan era, also called the Bithynian era, Pontic era, or Bithyno-Pontic era, was a calendar era year numbering used from 149 BC at the latest until at least AD 497 in Asia Minor and the Black Sea region. It originated in the Bithynian kingdom and was also used in the Pontic kingdom and for the longest time in the Bosporan kingdom. The calendar era begins with the assumption of the royal title by Zipoetes of Bithynia, Zipoetes I of Bithynia, in October 297 BC in the Gregorian calendar, which marks the start of its year one. The Bosporan era, the Bosporan year began at the autumn equinox. So he made kind of his own calendar, or changed the calendar, or put to use his understanding of the calendar, setting up his reign, or the area of reign. The earliest evidence for the use of the Bithynian era is some coins dating from 149 BC, when Nicomedes II overthrew his father, Prusius II. Since earlier Bithynian coins carry no date, which is interesting. When I bought this, is one of the things that was saying about this coin was this is one of the few that doesn't have a year, a date stamp on it. So this coin's actually kind of rare in that way. Since earlier Bithynian coins carry no date, so this is probably an early one, it is possible that the calendar was invented on this occasion. The era was adopted in Pontus under Mithridates VI, who introduced it onto the Pontic coinage sometimes before 96 BC, replacing the Seleucid era used up to then. Since Pontus and Bithynia were rivals at the time, the most likely date for the introduction of the Bithynian era into Pontus was during the brief alliance between the two countries during the invasion of Paphlagonia in 108 BC. The Bithyno-Pontic era fell out of use in northern Asia Minor following the Roman conquest in 63 BC. There is no evidence that it was suppressed by Roman authorities. Rather, the local authorities preferred to adopt new eras commemorating their joining the Roman province of Bithynia Pontus. The province thus had several dating systems in use, including the Seleucid era, but the Bithyno-Pontic era was not among them. This is no evidence from Asia Minor of the Bithyno-Pontic era ever being used on anything other than coins. Inscriptions, however, survive from the northern shore of the Black Sea, the region that fell under the Bosporan kingdom in the first 4 centuries AD. In the Bosporus, the era was used in conjunction with the months of the Macedonian calendar. The first Bosporan coins bearing the era are from the region of Mithridates VI's son, Pharnaces II, who never controlled Pontus and whose kingdom was thus restricted to the Cimmerian Bosporus. His coins were minted in Bosporus, but were of the Pontic type. The first distinctly Bosporan coins, which bear Bosporan dates, are from 281 BE, which is 17 or 16 BC, and were issued by Queen Dynamis. The earliest inscription dated with the Bosporan era can be read either 325 BE, which is 8029, or else 313, which is 17, and mentions the reigning king Aspergus, while the Bosporan series of coins ends with Rescuperus VI in AD 341. The latest inscriptions from 794 BE, AD 497. So it was like from like 250 BC or 150 BC, I guess it would be, to 497 AD. They had this and kept this new calendar system that Nicomedes, I guess, kind of put into place. And it was from the autumn equinox. So, and that's the September equinox is the moment when the sun appears to cross the celestial equator heading southward. Because of difference between the calendar year and tropical year, the September equinox may occur from September 21st to September 24th. So I find that quite interesting, that they were that they were coming up with their own calendars at this time, and coming up with their own timelines and kings reigning, and very interesting. And then here we have, this is kind of interesting about Epiphanies. Let's see. So many names come to mind when someone mentions the great villains of the Bible. Some are foreign powers like the Pharaoh of the Exodus or King Nebuchadnezzar, and some are even native Israelites such as King Saul and King Ahab. The great villains in the era of the New Testament early church often took the form of great persecutors, including King Herod the Great and the Roman emperors Nero and Domitian. These names have gone on to become historically infamous, with many immortalized on stage and screen. There is, however, one name that has escaped the attention of biblical pop culture, even though his actions arguably are worse than many of his villainous peers: Antiochus IV Epiphanes. And here is a coin of that states, a coin depicting Antiochus IV Epiphanes, minted 173 to 164 BCE. On the obverse front side, he is shown wearing a diadem. On the reverse backside, we see an unnamed goddess seated on a throne while holding Nike, or victory, in her right hand, and the words Basileos Antiochus, meaning emperor king. And yeah, Epiphanies is like God manifest, glorious, illustrious. So yeah, very, very interesting to see how, a lot of history we don't really know and understand per se, but these coins mint these depictions that we can look back on and at least know, well, this was something from that time that shows some of what and how they were thinking. So, hey, and Marsh, Joseph Lopez, welcome in. So here's some depictions of coins of Nicomedes, and yeah, I quite like this particular coin that I have's depiction of Zeus crowning with the diadem, or the what Nike often carries around, the Victoria crown, which is just a wreath of sorts, but very, very interesting. And I like how clean it is, but yet how much it's saying. Here, let me find my zoom button here. It's behind everything. Sorry. So yeah, again, so we have Nicomedes here, just your basic bust with a basic diadem, but very well stamped. Great relief on that. Great stamp, great strike, I guess is what you would say. And get the eyeball looking up into the heavens. I think that's pretty cool. But the reverse is where it's at for me on this coin. Again, I love the eagle riding the lightning bolt, representing Zeus, and just his just clean look, just a normal, well built, but not crazy ripped like some depictions nowadays are, and I kind of like that. And look at the detail and imagery even on his face. Quite impressive to me. And then of course he's being crowned with this wreath, and King, or Basileos, King Nicomedes, and Epiphany, or God ordained Nicomedes. So very like it's not busy. It's a very clean stamp, but still saying quite a bit in what little is there. So and it's also, like I was showing, it's a pretty big flan. Like here's your normal 1 ounce coin, and this is almost the same size. Not quite as big, and obviously a lot thinner, but still very cool. Look at that bust. So yeah, let me get back here. Can't see anybody. So that is the new ancient coin. Come over here and say hello to Instagram. Need to learn how to use Instagram as well. Okay, so yeah, so that's this new ancient coin I have. I guess, one thing that I like about these ancient coins that interests me, and some of the reason that I got into it was just, this is something that is real, that we can look at and look back at and see that is depicting imagery that they understood. And a lot of these ancient coins have the same depiction, or showing a god seated either on a throne, or like here he's standing, but he's still got his scepter, right? And like, let me zoom in a bit more. And look at the detail. You can see even his fingers holding the scepter. But again, you have a god holding a scepter, and it's got his representation, the eagle on a lightning bolt, depicting, we know who this is, Zeus, and he's crowning, giving the approval, giving the authority to the leader at the time, kind of saying, God has granted me my authority to rule and reign over this area. And lots of these ancient Greek coins have the same depiction. I mean, we have different gods on there, and from what I can tell, the Tarsus coin that was before Alexander the Great, showing Baal seated on his throne with his scepter, I think when Alexander the Great came in and conquered that area, he seen that coin and just took that exact imagery and put his god Zeus, which for the Greeks was the high god, the god of the other gods, and as Baal was for Tarsus. And it shows for Alexander the Great, Zeus seated on the throne, crowning him. And so you get this same imagery through a lot of these coins. And I find that quite telling. They all had their temples, their altars. So this was like, something that all of these cultures understood. And, the thoughts that they had about them, being placed in authority by a god, or the authority that they understood spiritually speaking. I guess what I'm saying is they seem to definitely have a thought process of a spiritual reality. Often, even looking at like what the Egyptians did and how their imagery and their hydroglyph, however you say it, hydroglyph. I can't think of how you say that, but their imagery that they wrote with, right? And just the way they looked at nature, the way they understood the world around them, and they definitely had a spiritual aspect to their lives that I think today we seem to have kind of canceled out. Whereas back then they all understood that there was some type of spiritual aspect to the reality in which they lived. And I have found that we have kind of drowned that out in this day and age. And though I also quite like how like this even says right there with this description that Nicomedes' epiphany, God ordained, God granted them, his power to reign, and God working through man. And that seems to be, even though, we have such a different view of it now, I think that they had that same understanding. They all had altars. They all did these sacrifices. And that seems so different for us, but even the Christian culture or the Jewish culture and the Jewish temple had these same things, these altars, these structures for God, and the sacrifices that were done to appease the gods. There was a definite spiritual understanding or connection there. And like for me, even like what Christ said, right? What Jesus said is God is a spirit, and it's the spirit that gives life. And I think that they had an understanding back then, much more of their actions could be strengthened or work, they could be used or worked through by God. And I think that's even what Jesus was quite clear about. It's he was always saying, these words are not my words that I'm speaking, and it's not me that's doing this, but my Father, this his God, or the Spirit working through him. And we seem to not have that same type. It seems like we've blocked the spiritual side out here nowadays quite heavily. So it's interesting to look back on these coins and see that, this is a vivid look back into the time and understanding that they were portraying. Obviously, he's portraying his authority and whatnot as well, right? Like, it's all propaganda, sure, but very much that they understood, like, that, it was God granting them their victories and things. And so yeah, I find that quite fascinating. So very cool ancient coin, again, like 150 to 149 to 127 BC. So a little over half ounce, almost as big as a 1 ounce coin. So very, very nice piece to hold in your hand. Quite a bit thinner, but the bust really pops out on this. It's like you can, if I had better light on that, it's like he's looking at you. Pretty cool. So yeah, that's what I have for you tonight. I'm going to be back soon here. Hopefully we'll do a review on our trip to New Orleans. And I'll have some of the other Osmium team up here and talk about the experience. Again, the mindset of the people attending there is quite inspirational to be around. And so yeah, we'll be back on to talk about that. Silver over $50 today. It's looking good, quite positive. So with that, we will catch you all on the next one. Thanks, guys.